What is going on YouTube? It's your boy Spanko, and today I'm excited because I am bringing to you guys an Altergeist deck profile, a deck profile I haven't done in so long. If you guys aren't new to the channel, you guys know that I used to play this deck very competitively. I stopped playing it when Faker went to 1, Faker's back at 3, haven't really looked at it since, but I saw that it is creeping up and people are starting to play it. So I checked out a few profiles, checked out how to play the deck in today's format, compared today's meta game to how I think the deck should be built, and boom, we're here with an Altergeist deck profile. If you guys do enjoy these videos, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Yu-Gi-Oh content. I'm excited to bring you guys this deck profile. One of my favorite decks, one of those decks that I kind of unfortunately strayed away from, but I'm back on it. I wanted to try it out again, and here it is in today's video. If you guys want to check out any of my social medias, links will be in the description below. Your playmat, if you guys want 10% off custom sleeves, custom playmats, check it out. A link will be in the description below as well. Use my code spankoygo10YP. It'll be in the thing if that's just too long, or it'll be on the screen. If you guys want to check it out, 10% off your custom sleeves and your custom playmats. All right, that's really all I gotta say, so on to the video. Okay, so just to get things started off here, we are starting off with triple multi-faker, triple marionetter, triple Miloseek, double silk, and one conqueree. Man, I'm gonna be honest with you, every single time I play conqueree, I'm like, man, this card is a brick. But then when you get the conqueree loops off, it's so disgusting. So you kind of still have to play the one. I think the rest of it is pretty obvious and pretty standard ratios. I don't think anything else here would change. Marionetter obviously being your best normal summon. Miloseek is also a really good normal summon, don't get me wrong, but because you have Multi-Faker now at 3, the Miloseek is still really good, but just opening Multi-Faker now is a lot more probable, so you don't always need Miloseek. I think Marionetter is always just your best normal summon here. Silkwood is obviously Silk, and Conk is Conk. Now, for the hand trap ratios, we are playing triple Ash and double Bell. The reason you're playing Bell a lot of the time is for the Call by the Grave, because Miloseek obviously needs to resolve in the graveyard. You play it against the Revolt, because if you want to play this in a meta competitive standpoint, you do need to be playing around some of the meta decks, and Revolt and Tri Brigade is actually one of the hardest decks to play against with this deck. So Ghost Spell is really good for the Revolt there, and then obviously Triple Ash is really good as a generic hand trap. So I don't think I would change these ratios up. I know some people who are actually playing Nibiru in the main deck. I chose not to play Nibiru. That's just me. I think Nibiru is only really good against the Drytron matchup going second, which, don't get me wrong, going second against Drytron is very difficult with this deck. It's actually very difficult with any deck, to be honest with you, but that's why you have a side deck, of course, and in your side deck you might want to include something like a Nibiru. But I think for the main deck, just against the general meta, not just against Drytron, you do want to playing these, and I think these are just the best ratios. Then you're playing triple Extrav and double Duality. Now you could, if you wanted to play Prosperity over the Extravagance, it's really up to you. There's kind of pros and cons with both. The reason I chose to play Extrav over Prosperity, but again, it literally can be swapped one for one, it won't make a difference. But the reason I chose to play Extrav is because I like having the extra card in hand. Prosperity is kind of like you're going to activate Prosp and get one card to hand, but the pro with Prosperity is the card you're getting to hand is something that you're choosing to add to your hand, right? So that's why it's kind of like you can play Extrav, you can play Prosperity. The reason I chose, again, Extrav more over the Prosperity is because we are playing Duality as well, and Duality is kind of like a pseudo Prosperity anyways, so that's kind of why I decided to do these ratios. And just lastly, the one thing I want to say about Extrav is like the extra card in your hand, what I was talking about earlier, is really important, because sometimes what this deck really wants to do is it wants to like snowball, right? This deck is such a snowbally deck, so with an extra card in your hand, it makes it that much easier to snowball, right? So that's why you're playing the triple Extrav. Then we are playing one Call by the Grave, of course, just to stop us from any hand traps. Triple personal spoofing, double protocol, and double manifestation. People sleep on how good manifestation is. A lot of people started playing manifestation at 1. I still like it at 2. I think this card is insane. It's one of your recursions in the deck. Obviously, another effect that it has that I feel like people forget is you can banish this card from your graveyard, target it on Altergeist trap in your graveyard, and then add it to your hand. So the thing is, if you really need to, technically manifestation can add back another manifestation, so it kind of loops itself. But the nice thing is, obviously, you can add back your protocol as well. So manifestation is just really good at 2. I think it's better than it is at 1. Trust me, I'm 100% firm on that statement. I do believe that double manifestation is, some people actually started playing triple manifestation. I wouldn't do this, but some people started playing triple manifestation and 1 protocol as well, and I'm like, protocol is still a really strong card, so that's why I just like 2 and 2. I think that's the best ratio. Then of course you're playing Imperm Multi-Faker is one of the best combos in the game. If you guys don't know, turn 0 going second, if you open Imperm Multi-Faker, you're huge, because without you even drawing a card, okay, you pretty much have a negate plus a bounce on your opponent's turn. Turn 0, you have a negate and a bounce just with this combo. So that's why I think this combo is so insane. Then you have triple torrential. I think torrential is really important in this deck. The reason I like to play it is because a lot of the time you're ending on very minimal monster boards anyways. I mean, the most you're going to end on your board is like a Hextia plus a monster under Hextia, really. And to be honest, I think torrential is just really good this format. It's unexpected and a lot of people lose to it low-key. So that's why I like to play triple torrential, one of the better trap cards in the game right now. The thing is, I will mention that in future formats, not right now per se, but in future formats, I think one card that's really, really good is Ice Dragon's Prison. I just don't think Ice Dragon's Prison's that good this format, which is why I chose to play Torrential over it. However, in future formats, if Torrential becomes less popular and IDP gets its spot back into the meta, just swap Torrential for IDP. If you guys are watching this in like 3-4 months and the meta's changed, whatever, I just wanted to give you guys a suggestion. I think IDP is really, really good. But yeah, for now, we're just playing the Torrential because I think Torrential is really, really good this format. One Imperial Order, again, the only spell cards you play are Extravagant Duality, I guess Called by the Grave as well. So Imperial Order is really, really good. Actually, funny enough, if you flip Imperial Order against most decks in the game, maybe outside of Tri-Brigade, they can't really play. Think about it, something like Drytron can't use their Meteonis. They're kind of stuck, right? If you think about the Shaddoll Dagmatic and Invoke deck, they need their spell cards. Even Tri-Brigade, to a certain extent, really wants Tenki to go off or Barrage to go off. I'm not saying it's really the best against Tri-Brigade, but it's just really good against so many decks in the meta. It just shuts down their decks low-key, and people forget how actually low-key good this card could be. So in the main decks, I think it's just perfect in this deck. And then we are playing triple Solemn Strike as well. Solemn Strike is really, really good, especially against a Striker matchup, and actually against a lot of matchups in general. Just stopping the summon itself is so important, because like if they can't get that summon on the field, then a lot of the things won't go off. So let me just talk about like Prank Kids. Prank Kids needs the Link monsters to be summoned for their monster in the graveyard to activate, for example. So if you negate the summon of the Prank Kids monster, boom, they're kind of just stuck in a weird position. They have to open like multiple extenders to play through that. Thinking about the Striker matchup, they can't get Ray back if you like strike their Kagari summon or something like that. So a lot of the time, striking a monster summon is just insanely powerful. Even against Tri-Brigade, if you strike the Fairyjit summon, or if you strike the Bearbrum summon, then their effects won't go off because they were never properly summoned at any point. So that's why I think Solemn Strike is just such a good card, and it's one of those cards that can be played really well in this deck. Again, synergizes so well with Multi-Faker. Then for the extra deck, we're playing double Access Code. Now, okay, don't get me wrong, I know it's expensive. You guys can play Boral Sword instead. You don't have to play the Access Code. But the reason I just wanted to show you the Access Code is I think that's technically the best way to play it, because you can play Selene in this deck. So if you guys don't know, Selene is 2+ monsters, including a Spellcaster monster, which you're not worried about because all of your Altergeist are Spellcaster monsters. Your Hextia is also a Spellcaster monster, which is mostly how you're going to be making Selene. And then you can add spell counters up to the number of spell cards in the graveyard. That's you and your opponents. So most of the time you're going to have 3 on it. Then you're going to use 3 to special summon a spellcaster monster back from your graveyard, and then a Link 3 and the Link 1 can make Access Code Talker. So that's why you want to really play these two in conjunction. They work so well together. But you could play, if you wanted to, Boral Sword. Boral Sword just doesn't work with the Selene because you need 3 monsters for the Boral Sword, so you would have to do it a little bit differently. But for this build, I like to play 2 Access Code, 2 Selene, because that's just so good to go into. Then you're just playing 1 Unicorn, 1 Phoenix. Those are just toolbox cards. Triple Hextia, because the cards that you're mainly going to go into, and I'll be honest, are Triple Hextia. You're going to go into Link Rebo, you're going to go into Anima, and you're going to go into Almirage. Anima is really good in this deck, low-key, because you can make it with the Millisseek, and that's really strong. Just taking your opponent's monster is really insane. So that's why I just really like the Anima in this deck. It doesn't come up too often, but it's one of those cards that you make it more than you make these, I would say. These are just kind of like end of game situations or mid to late game. If you have a setup, boom, you can go into these and just OTK your opponent out of nowhere. And that's one thing I wanted to mention about this deck as well, is people know this is a control deck, plays it slow, plays it grindy. However, with the addition of Selene and Access Code, what ends up happening with this deck is actually you can surprise OTK your opponent out of nowhere. Like, your opponent might be thinking like, oh, you know, he doesn't have enough damage to beat me right now. I'm still at 8k, or I'm still at like 7k, whatever it is, and he's just playing a bunch of small Altergeist monsters. Because generally, these are pretty small monsters, right? Well, if you just randomly make an Access Code with Selene, Access Code is now 5300 attack, and you can pop a bunch of cards on the field. Then if you can just set up any other Altergeist monster, you can just kind of low-key go for OTK there. So that's why I just really like this package. I really would recommend playing this package. However, again, I know Access Code's an expensive card, don't get me wrong. So if you guys want to swap this out, you can swap it out with like a Boral Sword, and then swap out Selene's as well. I wouldn't play Selene's anymore if you're playing Boral Sword over the Access Code. So you have 4 cards essentially here to play with if you wanted to. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. That is my take on Altergeist, how to play it in today's format. I think it's going to be very low-key competitive. Like, people don't play this deck too much anymore, but the people who do know that they can see success with it, and I think low-key this deck can catch people off guard. But if you guys have any suggestions, of course, let me know in the comment section down below. I love to hear what you guys have to say and what you guys think. If you guys want more Yu-Gi-Oh content, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And that's really all I gotta say. Actually, I kind of paused it because I don't know what to say next, but that's all I gotta say. So with that, Spanko signing out. Peace.